All right, so officially, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Zinester Talk episode 6. And this is a part of the Sila Circle Writers Festival. And tonight we're joined by, well, supposedly Shelby, but I think she disconnected. So, um, supposed to be here, Kate Roque, Adira Putri, and myself to talk about our zines and chapbooks. And I guess we'll start by doing a round of introductions. So, who'd like to start? Oh, Shelby's here. Yay. Okay, awesome. So, yeah, we'd like to start introductions. Okay, I guess I'll just start introductions. um, hi, I'm Steph. Although for my for my zine, I did use a pseudonym. If you've To those who've read my zine, I guess you'd know what that pseudonym is, or if you've seen the zine around. But anyway, the zine is called House Blessing as Root Check, and it's a collection of personal essays that involve nature, and every now and then I try to talk about political things. Um, I'm trying to remember what political things exactly. So it's a cold. But yeah, I remember talking about like family dynamics there and just like problematic societal stuff. But that's not really specific. So maybe later on I will remember what the specifics are. But yeah, I guess that's it for me. And whoever wants to go next can go next.
I think I'll go next. My audio is already on. Hi, I'm Shelby, and I still go by the same name when I'm writing. I kind of just write whatever I see in front of me, like nothing specific. I get inspired by extremely random things. Could be like a mug or like just I don't know, someone passing by in a red pants. It's very very random. So when I just get inspired, I just try to pen down things, and then at night I try to like, okay, how can I like expand this further? So that's my thought processes when I'm actually writing. So that's exactly what I also wrote on my book. It's just inspired by a lot of things, people, things, animals, nature. Yeah.
Okay, hi everyone. Nice to meet you all. I think I can go next. So my name is Kate, like Shelby. I also go by the same name when I write, and my chapbook submission to the Writers Fest is a chapbook called Multiverse Theory. It's all about possibilities and being in your early 20s. That's so vague, but that's the premise. It's about possibilities. It's about four alternate realities that one persona faces. But in general, I do relate to a lot to what Shelby said about being inspired by literally anything. Could be just whatever is in front of me. And yeah, they all come from very personal places and experiences.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. Hi everyone, Edira here, um, joining from Indonesia, and my zine is about my relationship with work. And I think it's very profound that Chelsea and Kate are inspired by everything and like the most random things, while I'm inspired by my own misery as a as a 9 to 5 worker. And I always tell people that me writing the pieces in my zine is like idea of my idea of being a rebel, like my idea of rebelling against work because I write for a living, and I insist that I also write for fun, and that's the zine. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, well, I don't know how, like, this, the only part we discussed was like introducing ourselves and doing the round. Um, Although I like how like Adira sort of like transitioned by saying like the connections with Kate and Shelby's process and how Adira's process is a little bit different from Kate and Shelby's, and I think I would be more similar to Adira as of the moment. So I do have questions for Adira about work things, just because I feel like it's such a relevant, but I can imagine it being a sensitive subject. And I don't know if maybe it's not a profound question, but I think it's a question that maybe everyone can relate with, which is like, were you scared that people at the work would find your zine and all the backlash and drama that can come from all your criticisms of you know being a slave? I'm just kidding. But, okay, let's be honest. It is what it is.
Yeah, actually, I was planning to ask the same thing to you, Stephanie, because I think your work is also very personal and yet political. So yeah, I after I answer this, please you can maybe also share your own experience. For me, actually, I think my boss purchased my zine. I don't know, and I don't know if she's read it or not, but she did purchase it, and she shared an Instagram story of my zine, and, and yeah, and we never talk about it. But I work in creative industry where people are basically chill with each other. Like I have work partners and even my boss are like pretty chill, and also I don't think my work is um as personal as maybe Stephanie's. Like I don't name names, and I try not to be specific about my woes and everything. So I think this is how I let everything out without calling out anyone, because if I don't write this on my zine, I will resent people. I will resent my boss. I will resent everyone. So just put it in a page and I forget about it. And I try to understand everything as a bigger picture. It's not anyone's fault. It's not my boss's fault. It's not anyone's fault. I try to extract everything and put it in a big picture, and that's my process, and that's how I not resent people I work with. So yeah.
Oh, can I also actually I had almost a similar question to Adira. So when you were first attempting to like put this out to the world, and number two, like, do you go back and reread your things and like feel, I don't know, do you feel the same emotions again when you reread? Like, oh, this person did that, I still hate them. Or do you have those kind of things?
um I think um this is one of the reason I write and publish the zine. I think as soon as I write it down and I publish it, I kind of like I move on, like like if you ask me now, like, do I resent living in this capitalism world and everything? I kind of just chill. I'm chill with it now because I say what I have to say. I put it out in the world, and that's it. So when I write it now, when I read again my zine, what I feel is, I don't know, just chill and, oh, okay, this is the world I live in, and that's all right. I can always write about it, and that would be fine.
It's more of like acceptance now. Okay, this is the
Yeah,
world. I'm
that's
okay
true.
with it.
That's
Yeah.
true.
I actually have a similar question because, like, you mentioned that you write for a living and you also write to escape work, which is writing. So you write to escape writing. And I relate a lot to that because I also work in a creative industry. I'm in advertising. Um, yeah, so I'm a writer. I mean, the form of what I write for work is very different to what I write personally on, my zines or my chapbooks. But how do you, as a writer, kind of find solace in the same practice that also use to like survive in this like world. Get me? It can be tough to balance, at least in my experience, writing to get away from writing. And yeah, I guess I just wanted to know more about your process and what your relationship with writing is like, given that it's something that you need, but also something that helps you express and to help you get away from your woes.
Yeah. Also, I want to know everyone's experience on this. If you have something to share. But for me, um, writing for other people, like for work, advertising. I work in advertising as well. It's always, I don't know. It's writing for other people requires letting go a lot of control. You have to write what people want you to write, and writing for yourself is how I express, how I reclaim my freedom. And if you ask the relationship between my writing for work and my writing for myself, I don't know. It's kind of like enriching each other. You know, the things I learn from work, I try to put into my personal work, and then the things I learn from personal work, I try to uh, apply to my work whenever possible. I guess that's it from now. I'm just trying to figure everything and balance everything out. But I like to know everyone's experience as well.
So this is weird. I'm also a writer by work, but I actually do tech writing. It's actually extremely boring to write at work. And why I write what I write now is like to balance out that boringness that I have at work. It's extremely technical. As you said, you're totally writing for someone else. And I think I have to like take a lot of myself out from the writing I do for other people. So this is why I do like whimsical crazy poems, because that's me. So I come back and say, oh, I need to balance myself. So I write weird things.
Okay, so it's confirmed. All of us here are writers for like professionally, so that includes me as well. Although for me, I now freelance. I've been freelancing for since 2019. I can't math, but since 2019 I've been freelancing, and I started freelancing precisely because, at least for me, it was very hard to find the balance between writing for other people and sort of, also writing for myself. At least maybe that's also because a lot of the writing I was doing for work was also, like, I mean, it's considered nonfiction, right? Like, um, it's still prose. It's still telling people like supposedly facts. So you sell a product, it's a feature article or something. You profile people, which is still, again, sort of like still nonfiction. And because creatively I write nonfiction, I felt really exhausted. I felt like I was using the same part of my brain. And maybe, I found myself wishing at that time that I wrote in a different genre. So at least like it would feel a bit more different. So like for all of you are poets, and like sometimes I wish I just wrote poetry, so there's a little bit more flavor or like more fun as well in the writing, which it was very hard to find that, since I was also writing, like more serious nonfic. So yeah, at least for me, it's the work that suffered in a way, because like I have distanced myself from it, and as a freelancer, I get to like, decline projects for better or for worse, just because like emotionally and mentally, it's either I can't or I refuse. I can't tell, because sometimes I don't know how you do it in here. Like I sometimes wish I could be chill about it, and like, okay, I identify the problems of society, and after writing about it, I can let it go. And writing for me helps in letting it go, But then, like 3 days later, the same bullshit happens, and I'm like, God damn it! So yeah, at least for me, it's kind of like a roller coaster where like sometimes I'm okay, and then some other times it's like, gosh, I have to go through this whole grind again. So that's my relationship.
Oh my gosh, Steph, yeah, I can relate. Because I, for my work, well, I write different things for work and for myself. So I write poetry for myself, as I think you guys have read. But for work, I write more scripts. And sometimes it does inspire my personal work. Helps me to experiment a little bit with the form, which has been really interesting and kind of pushed me out of my writing comfort zone. But essentially, it did also feel like, or sometimes it does feel like, I'm using the same part of my brain. I think I actually had like a similar conversation with my boss because he knew about my chapbook and he was very supportive about it. But then he asked me like, isn't it a bit hard for you to balance like writing for advertising, writing poetry? And I was like, yeah, I feel like this might not be sustainable for me, which is why I have been trying to take it a little bit easier with my own personal projects. I mean, a good amount of pressure internally, I think, is okay for motivation, but I don't want to push myself to the same degree that like my work also pushes me. I feel like it's counterproductive and also not kind to myself. And so, even though I would very much like to put out more, I feel like there's a lot more time for me to do that in the future, and it's not something that I need to be constantly churning out. And yeah, I think that's what I'm trying to do to kind of ease that pressure.
If I may come back to Stephanie's question to me about being personal about your work and naming names and talking about people in your lives, and I would like to know if uh, you guys have any problems with um, sharing all those personal stuff in your work and risking the people who know what's going on read it and feel something about it.
I'd love to take this question first as the nonfiction writer here. Well, honestly, that's also part of why I published this zine as under a pseudonym. So this is my first time publishing it um, under a different name or publishing anything under a different name. And I came to that decision because I, well, my last name is very rare in the Philippines. And I feel like people could easily find out who my relatives are on Facebook or just on Google. And I didn't want people to think that, oh, because I read about my mom or my parents and like, sometimes, just the hard parts about our relationship. I don't want them to think, I mean, I don't want strangers to think that my parents are bad. And I don't want my parents to feel like I'm shaming them. And like in 2014, my mom has read my essays and confronted me about that. And she said, you're making it seem like I'm the antagonist of your life. And I swear I had the worst answer what she said. It was so embarrassing. But anyway, so I feel like after that, like I never really knew how to sort of balance it out. And a few months ago, I realized, or maybe not even realized, I just decided to sort of try using a different name so that I would, like, there's like a physically and like objectively, distance between, the author as persona and like my family. And I also did not tell them because I feel like, okay, sorry, the work trauma is also gonna seep into this because like I used to tweet about my like my frustrations with work, and then someone screenshotted those tweets and showed them to HR. And so I've been traumatized ever since. So this happened in like 2019, which is also when I quit my job. So it all kind of just like connected. And so ever since that, that experience for me, which is so traumatic, I decided, that it's so hard for me to like put myself out there, even if like, as even as a nonfiction writer, to put myself out there. I never know like what the intentions of people are. So like as much as I want to connect with the reader, I don't know how much I can trust the reader to like, be kind to me. So as a way to sort of navigate that, I'm using a pseudonym so that a relative or someone who just knows my family isn't gonna screenshot and then send it to my mom and be like, hey, your daughter is publishing this or whatever. So yeah, I just decided, okay, I'll just put it under a different name so it's not searchable. I also didn't promote it in my personal Instagram because of that fear on my end. So yeah, for me, it's like professional life mingles with the personal life, and yeah. Sorry, it sounds like a mess, but yeah.
Okay, I think we all need a bit of mess in our life anyway to be creative.
Well, how about for the others? In terms of, I don't know, what Idira asked of maybe kind of being worried about, potential people who might sort of react violently. Because, for example, with Kate's work, there's a lot of like, I can feel resentment in some of the pieces. And, it's easy to sort of wonder, like, if there's anyone in your life who would sort of think that, okay, the poem is about them, whether or not it is true.
Oh yeah, definitely. That was actually like a really big fear of mine when I was finishing up the project. Like, sure, the writing and the entire creative process was hard, but like another like big daunting step for me was actually putting it out there, because I know there will be people like who know what's going on and will have an idea about who or what I'm writing about. And so, kind of like you, Steph, I did minimize like promotions, or I tried to do it on my own terms. Try to spread it through word of mouth in circles that I do trust. Yeah. And I mean, now that I've done it, it feels like a relief, like a big weight off my chest, because this also is my first time publishing a chapbook, which is great, and I'm proud of myself for having done it. But even though that fear is still there, I feel like I can get through it. Maybe like you, a confrontation will come up. I mean, I hope not. I'm a big confrontation avoider. But if it has to happen, I'm very much open to that conversation. Although I am also thinking about writing under a pseudonym. I don't know how that will pan out, but it's something that I've been thinking about for safety also. I don't know. How about you guys?
Wait, can I just say really quickly though that when I made the decision to publish under a pseudonym, I felt like a weight was off my shoulders. Like I felt so relieved, and I felt like it was the best decision of my life. Although of course we don't know that yet because it's only like the 14th of July. The zine market is still open, and any like backlash would probably come like in a month or two. But right now, I'm really happy. I decided to publish under a pseudonym. Although my brother did find it because my brother follows the Seal Circle Instagram, and he saw my face and he was like, "Hey!" and he bought a zine. But my brother's chill, so yeah, I'm not worried with my brother because we're tight, and yeah, any like BS with parents, like he'll side with me, so I can trust him on that. But yeah, otherwise, like, it's so nice to have a pseudonym and like not be anonymous, but still kind of just be active-ish with a pseudonym. Yeah.
I just want to add, I guess, like it's great that this pseudonym for you really works, and it was also a relief, but also at the same time, like I mean, it's pretty new right now, right? But how do you adopt another name or another persona without completely like avoiding accountability that comes with like all of the emotions and the experiences you write about? Because that's also one of my concerns if I do choose to adopt like a pseudonym later on. Like, how do you take accountability for what you write, even under a different name?
Oh, that's a really good question, and the one that I never thought about until you asked me. And I will say that maybe it's a genre thing for me as someone who writes nonfic. I always feel accountable to myself, and like I know when I am stretching the truth. I know when I'm telling things as it is. And there was a time before, like when I started writing creative nonfiction, and in one of my classes in school, because I studied creative writing, the professor sort of encouraged us to sort of rethink facts and rethink truth and how subjective it is. And so my work at that time, I tried, like changing certain facts. But nothing big. It's not like fake news or anything. But it's more of like, from eating a pineapple, I changed it to an orange or something like that. It's just like an image thing that I change every now and then. And as I grew older, I realized I don't like doing that, even if it doesn't really, even if it's not a life or death situation. If you change what the fruit is, I find myself liking like disconnections and whatever. And I think for me, I really enjoy kind of writing things as they are, or at least trying to, to the best of my abilities. And maybe that's how I saying, I guess, like when you lie, you ultimately lie to yourself. And as someone who has lied before, and I've considered myself a good liar because I've had to like lie to my parents for like a bunch of things, and get away with them. Yeah, I'm just sick of it. I do want to live an honest life, and for me, I've come to realize that writing lets me live an honest life. And if I lie in my work, whether or not I use a pseudonym, what's the point? So I feel like the genre really helps me be, as honest, whether or not I have a pseudonym. So I guess speaking in terms of like um, facts and truths and conveying things, I feel like poetry is able to also do that. I mean, not to like pit genres against each other or anything, um, but I do feel like the more I read poems and the more I'm exposed to poems, there's a lot of magic. I think um, I feel like poetry is able to capture like high highs and the lowest of lows. And I feel like your works were really able to capture that. And I was wondering, like, what your process is, to be able to capture those emotions. And I don't know, how are you guys after writing, like really heavy things? And also, well, to be fair, like Shelby's poems are more on the comforting side, but there is still like the implication of of grief and loss. So yeah, I wonder how you're able to um kind of stay sane, I guess, while writing heavier things. And I don't know if you have like any techniques, craft wise or even like outside of writing, to make it more sustainable for you to write poetry.
I think for me, weirdly enough, I actually stopped writing for a very long time as well at work and stuff or whatever. And I was like, oh, my brain juices are not up for writing stuff. And I think it was also during COVID time. I think I was just extremely stressed and I didn't know what to do. So I started writing. And I was writing from a point where I was feeling stressed and I wanted something comforting. So I kind of like intertwined me being stressed and finding something to comfort me. So that's how I started writing a bit something a bit stressful, and I'm like, okay, no, you can do this. This can happen. Things can be better. So it's all. I think the things I wrote is actually also for me to comfort my days when I'm extremely stressed. So yeah, that's how my things. I'm like if I'm feeling like really sad, so there'll be like a poem like, okay, today I feel sad, and then I saw a tree. Okay, I'm like, okay, how can I tie this to sadness? And how can this tree also comfort me? So that's how my thought processes work. Yeah. So I think it's I think if I think at the first I was actually also very scared about putting myself out there. I've been only be writing in my own books. I kept everything in my journals. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna stack it up. Here's my own feelings. I don't want people to find out if I'm like extremely sad. This is how I pacify myself. And one day, I think again during COVID time, I was like, I mean, like the world is like closing down. So what, what do I have to lose, right? So I'm just gonna do everything I want. And I just started writing out and just publishing it on Instagram, and that's where it started. And this is also my first zine, actually. Yeah, handing the mic over to someone else who wants to share.
Okay. If Kate, like you said, you tend to avoid conflict. I can relate to that, but and in addition to that, I avoid thinking and feeling about stuff. So if I don't sit down and write about it, I will never deal with it. So like I will never deal with those emotion if I don't take my time to sit down and actually put it into paper. So that's how I confront writing my poems is how I confront my feelings. That's how I feel my feelings. Otherwise, I would just try to forget about it and try to distract myself from feeling any of those feelings. So yeah, how that's how I guess my poems inevitably convey my um, everything, my complaints, my sadness, and my happiness. Sometimes I'm happy, and yeah, and I can relate to Chelsea as well. She said the more I for me, the more stressed I am, the more I write. And the happier I am, I think I'll go silent and not write for a while. So maybe it's a good thing when I'm writing, it's a good thing, but also when I'm not writing, it's a good thing. It means I'm like content with everything. So yeah, that's how
This
I
is so
try.
funny, like because like fun fact, I'm also not very confrontational. Confrontational. I don't like to confront people. So everything people say, I just like okay, I can do this. I just keep it in my mind. So again, I think writing was like a very good platform for me to like explore my own emotions. So totally get you.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same with you guys. Like, not that I don't feel anything unless I'm writing, but I feel things to the extent that I need to feel them when I'm writing. And I feel like with poetry, it's a bit different to Steph's experience with nonfiction, of course. So I feel like with my own work with poetry, there's a lot of space for like creative liberty. Like I don't have to write everything down exactly as they happen, but I in my own work because I don't want to straight up lie and just make up things from my own head, but what I do to stay truthful and to stay true to what I really felt and experienced in those works are, I guess, I try to make every element in my work intentional. If I use a certain image or if I use a certain word, I really think about that because it serves a purpose and or ideally it should serve a purpose and it should be able to convey what I think and what I feel, which I might not otherwise say out loud, you know. So
I'm gonna throw like a curveball question so that we can talk about like happier things. Um, I think that's possible. So no, because well, I wanted to ask like I guess like if you could, if any reader, would go through our works, and I think even if we tackle like quote unquote negative emotions, like I think there's still kind of like I think our zines sort of assert kind of joy in a way, or at least sort of like not joy, at least trying to find peace and stuff. And so I was wondering, how I guess how intentional is that on your part to sort of do that for yourself and for the reader? And the other question I have is like, so I guess it's a little bit sillier, because I know, for example, Kate and Shelby, you wrote each of you wrote a poem from the perspective of an animal. Kate with a dog, Shelby with a cat, and Adira, you also like your zine heavily features a very cute cat. So yeah, I was wondering like what how did you sort of also come to that like creative decision of incorporating not just nature but like an animal, and perhaps I would assume at least, I mean, these animals are the types of animals we'd have as pets. So I would also like to think that maybe these were slash are your pets today. So yeah, what went through that process?
One. Okay, I'll go first then. Um, I think in terms of cat, I think I am fascinated by cats. I don't have a cat. I don't have a pet, but I just find cats very mysterious, and I feel like they don't tell people enough things. And I think in my mind, I want to like understand like how is actually the cat feeling. So I kind of put like a persona of a cat and a persona of a human, and I try to combine them, and I try to make the cat talk because cats are always like always in the corner, like yeah, just very distant. So I want to make something so distant, not distant. So that was the idea of having using a cat. Yeah, that's from my perspective, and I think also the nature probably the same thing for me because but technically if you listen, like they do have a lot of things going on. Like if you listen to rivers and stuff, there are always sounds. Like if there's like a wind whistling in the trees, there's sounds. So I want to give like voices to those people who don't have a voice. It's not even people, things that don't have a voice per se. I say I think, yeah, somewhere along that line. I just feel like they need to express themselves more. I guess, yeah.
Okay, let's talk about cats. uh, for me, the decision to heavily feature my cats is more practical reason. If you have pets, maybe you'll relate to this, but my camera roll is flooded with pictures of my cat. And oh, maybe this is also later a question for you guys, because a lot of writers are not visual artists themselves. I'm not a visual artist. I can't like, draw, illustrate, and even take pictures. And when I set out to publish my zine, I feel like this needs cute visuals to go with the zine, because my zine talks about bleak stuff. And if I publish it as is, I don't think a lot of people will want to read it. It's a marketing decision. And I feel like, yeah, the cat, the good old cat bait. And as I was going through my camera roll, I was trying to find stuff that can go with my zine. I didn't think cat would be it at first, but I realized like I have a lot of pictures of my cat doing work like stuff, like sitting on a laptop, sleeping on a laptop, yawning near a laptop. Like I thought this cat is like me when I'm working, like just sitting and napping, yawning, trying to do work. So I thought, okay, this cat is me. And yeah, also he looks cute, and it's a practical decision, and I think it captures my mood. And I mean, looks sort of random. Why do you put cats on your zine about work? But I really feel like it captures the emotion. It's a contrast between my laptop and my cat, who is trying to be chill beside it or on top of it or near it. So yeah, that happens to be cat, and it's a practical decision, marketing decision. Yeah, that's it.
I love all the cat imagery, but unfortunately I am a dog person. I mean, I love cats also. I love petting random cats and just animals in general. But for my work specifically, I chose a dog because I think around the time that I was like choosing works for my chapbook, um, I had a bunch in there that included my dog because when I wrote those, my dog was very sick and I was just very clingy because I thought he was gonna die, but he didn't. So yeah, and then when I decided to write even more poems for the chapbook, um, I kind of realized that me and my dogs share like the same loyalty, the same sensitivity, and I guess I conveyed that through the dog metaphor, which also explains why I tried to insert like as many pictures of my dog as possible. Yeah.
If I may follow up on the thing being not all writers are visual artists, and sometimes we want to publish zine with cute visuals. How do you guys deal with that? Like, how do you like prefer to collaborate with friends for the illustration? I think Kate did that, right? And yeah, how do you decide how to the production side of stuff outside from writing, but the publishing and layouting and the visuals of the zine?
For me, I decided to collab with my friend Kat, who's super talented and like everything, all of her visuals, all of her illustrations were super amazing. I decided on that because I felt like my vision was a bit too chaotic and like my limited talent or like my limited skills on the visual side wouldn't really be able to convey that. And so there, I decided I would need somebody's help. But in terms of layouting, I do know a little bit, or I trust myself a little bit more about that. So I laid out everything once the visuals were all done. But definitely without Kat's help, I wouldn't have been able to um, really visually show what my work was about. And I'm really happy in particular with my front cover, which I think depicts the chaos of my own chapbook very well. How about you guys? I noticed like a pattern of like pictures of flora and fauna, like aside from the cats, lots of pictures of sceneries of plants. So, what were the decisions behind those? What were the thoughts behind those?
Well, I guess I'll go. Um, well, to be honest, I kind of did my zine very late because when I put up the, call for like zine submissions, in my mind, I was not going to make a zine. And then for like Silo Circle people at that time, he decided to organize um, like a really like, basic talk. It was for an hour of like how to create a zine. And one of our members works in book publishing, so he kind of showed people the ropes for like the basics of like how to lay out a page and stuff like that. And then when he was talking about it, I kind of thought that it might be fun to just try it, and that's why I made a zine. It wasn't to like, I mean, I wrote the works for myself, but then I just wanted to try layouting um, real for the first time. So I made myself suffer by making a zine. I put it out on Canva, and I initially was not thinking of like putting any pictures, and then um, one of the Sila Circle people, Andy, she shared a link to a YouTuber talking about like how she makes her zines, and she started the video by saying like, what is a zine? What do zines mean to people like historically and stuff like that? And when I watched that video, I realized how like it was just there was just this really fun vibe around zine making where like really like there are no rules, and then you can just as an author you can just put whatever you want on the zine. So I was like, oh, so I can put pictures. And the mere fact that I could put pictures, I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna put pictures just because I can. And if otherwise, like anyone who publishes like a collection of essays or a collection of poetry by a traditional publisher, like how often would a picture actually show up? And a colored one at that. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this because this might never happen again. Um, so at least that was the process for me. And I think the joke for the past 2 weeks or the past few Zinester talks is that we should be sponsored by Canva. I don't know if any of you have used Canva, but we've name dropped Canva so many times that yes, that is the joke of like, okay, we should be sponsored by Canva at some point because all of us, I think, majority so far, of people made their zines using Canva. So Canva, if you're listening, yeah, that was for me. Maybe Adira and Shelby, you have other things to share about the layout and even like the choice of pictures and maybe also the fonts and stuff.
So, and I actually work with a design team, and I actually do enjoy also designing and also photography. So it's something I like to do. So I really like very clean cuts, very basic colors. Hence, I just went with something black and white with the Japanese thingy going on. So I wanted something very clean aesthetic. Yeah, but I've been working with a design team for like almost 8 years. So I'm a tech writer, but I'm in the design team. So totally, I don't know. I think I've been seeing it for a very long time, and I've been using Canva for ages as well. So it's something I enjoy actually. So it was very fun for me to pick out the layouts and the images and to see it like come to life. Oh, this is so good. When it's like all laid out. That was fun. Yeah. So it's not something very new, but I never done it for myself. I always done it for other people. So that was the new bit to it, doing something for myself. Yeah.
I use Canva, and the layout for my zine from a template, and I had to Google if I can use it for commercial. Like I'm selling my zine, right? I had to Google it. I had no idea how to process everything. I just kind of go with my feelings. With I have no basics in design and everything, but I was kind of surprised because for me, I found that that's a fun that's a fun part of the whole thing. Like the writing was kind of yeah, that's not fun, but it's fulfilling. But the layouting and the visuals are fun, so it kind of balance out everything. Um, yeah, shout out for Canva again.
I wanted to say, like, just very quickly to echo Adira, it was so fun to lay out on Canva. And at least for me, like, I was so excited to lay out. And one of the rules, at least, like, the main rule or the main thing that one of our members said when he did the zine making talk is that make sure the text is as final as it can get before you lay out. Otherwise, it will be hell when you do the layout and then you edit the text and then you have to like move things around. And maybe it's easier for poetry, but I was writing prose and I had that two column thing going on. And my gosh, I for a few days I kind of hated myself because I would like proofread on the thing and I'd be like, okay, first of all, it was also like a decision to make it two column because I wanted it to be different. But at the same time, it's like, wow, I made it more difficult for me because I had to like make sure like there was no space or like the columns were filled and stuff. Um, so that was on me, but I guess still in hindsight, it was a learning experience to do it on my own. And I guess a question for Shelby and Kate, since both of you collaborated with people, do you have any tips or like how did you know that you could trust like the people that you tapped for the project? Did you work with them before? Do you have a criteria? Maybe have you worked with or have you tried collaborating with people and it just kind of it wasn't right?
Uh,
Um,
okay, actually, I did not collaborate. I did it myself. Yeah. It was actually I am a tech writer in a tech company, but I also help with the design team. So I'm actually part of the design team. Yeah. So I did it myself. Yeah. To be honest, I I have not found anyone I could trust in doing this. So I did it myself. Yeah, but of course, like working with a bunch of designers kind of gives you a bit more ideas on aesthetics and how to do things. So yeah.
Oh my gosh, you guys are a one man team. Congrats, all my respect. But I personally, I did not trust myself enough to execute my own vision visually. With my collab for this submission in particular, I decided to work with Kat because she's a very good friend of mine. Aside from being very talented, I knew I could trust her with like my vision and like all of the reasons behind why I wanted things a certain way. And of course, if she had her own creative input, she always shared them with me so that my zine could be readable. I'm not the best at typography, so I also consulted with her a lot about like the readability of the text, which I also like. I hated myself while I was layouting that as a non-design person. Fun fact: one line from I forget which poem, but one line was erased from like layout errors on my end, and so that line is now gone forever. But it's not relevant, I think. Just yeah, fun fact. My chapbook is missing one line in the copy that's available for the world. But yeah, my on my end, I'm very lucky that I have artist friends and that I was able to collab with a very good friend of mine for this. um, we actually had a really nice conversation about my inspirations and why I wanted my chapbook to look the way that it did. And it was very inspired by, or a big part of it, including the color palette, was inspired by cyanotype printing, which is a form of printing that I was very obsessed with um, earlier last year. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar, but it basically uses the sun and shadows from whatever object you want printed out to print out a print of that thing, and it turns out blue and very melancholic when you look at it. So I just wanted to ask something about that to everybody. Were there other art forms that helped inspire your works, or what kind of things did you read, or what other kinds of art did you consume while you were in the process of writing your works?
For for me, um, I actually I enjoy looking. I mean, like I really like art galleries. I like to stand and stare at things. So that's one of the things that I like to do: stand and stare at buildings, at humans, art galleries, or anything. So that's my idea of getting inspiration for all these things. Another thing that I really like is actually also music and dance. This thing kind of like feels a bit when I'm actually building something visually. Yeah, I'm very, very, yeah. So it actually really depends. I think I'm like driven by too many things. Sometimes even I get confused. I'm like, oh my god, I like too many things. So I need to like, okay, Charlie, you need to calm down. So I really need to stick. Actually, for me to come up with this Japanese book idea, it looks like so simple. Like it took me like forever because I like too many things. And I'm like, okay, do I go like I like Persian art very much. So when I wanted to do first, I did like a Persian thingy. Then I'm like, this is too much. I'm not feeling it. Then I gave myself like 2 to 3 days to feel something again. And I tried something else. I went very Indian. I went like like mango patchwork or something like that. I put everything, and I keep looking at the zine like for one day, and I'm like, I'm not feeling this, and then I deleted it, and I went back again, and then one day I sat down, and I think this was actually the day I saw like a Murakami book in front of me. I'm like, okay, that cover looks interesting. Then it kind of like, oh, zinc. I think I'm gonna do something Japanese, and I did it like in that day, and then I looked at it again for one day, and okay, I'm feeling this vibe, and that's why I just picked it. But it was like quite a long process, and I would say I'm very picky when it comes to aesthetic. So took me like ages to do that thing. It's very simple, but I'm like, even when the line moves a bit, I'm like, I'm so stressed with this line. And I'm like, okay, I need to like calm down, take a breather. Yeah, I have crazy processes sometimes. But
Okay. The art forms that inspire my zine are marketing, advertising, and copywriting. That makes me so boring. But aside from that, I like visual arts. I mean, looking at visual arts, not making them. And I like going to, like Chelsea, I like going to museums and art museums, and I love installations, art installations. That's my favorite form of art. And during my process of making a zine, because this is my first zine, I gather inspirations from a lot of local zines. I went to indie bookstores and just through pages of zines that are published. And yeah, I got a lot of inspiration from other people's zines. So I really love reading all your zines because yeah, it gives me inspiration, hopefully, for the next one. Thanks for that.
I can jump in because mine is pretty similar also to Adira, which is like I mentioned earlier, I did not plan on creating the zines when I opened the submission for the zine market. And then when I saw people started submitting zines and I saw how pretty the zines were, I was like, oh my god, I want to make one too. So I think the zines of everybody else was really inspiring to me, to try it out because why not? Um, as for like other forms of art, um, I do like photography, although I have like a love hate relationship with it because you know how it's so cliche to be like, oh, when you take a picture, you're not in the moment or whatever, and it's like I know that you're not in the moment, but at the same time, my writing, at least for the zine, calls for being in the moment. So I do always see like conflict with photography. And then a few months ago, I tried my hand at film photography, and I enjoy it. I enjoy like using like a camera where I can like really roll the film and stuff, and I love the clicking sounds. But when I have a film developed and then I get the negatives back, I'm aware of like the waste of this hobby. So I don't know how to deal with it. I like it, but if I wish I could just paint, so I will just paint and not take pictures. You know what I mean? Um, I guess like acrylic paint is also made of plastic, so that's a whole other like problem. But okay, we're getting to the negative side of things, but I'll try to keep it positive. So there's that photography by default because it's like the easiest thing to get into. Um, and then I also like music, although I've struggled to write something that incorporates or is inspired by music, because I mean like an actual song, for example, because it's so hard for me to sort of convey what the song already conveys on its own. Like it's hard for me to sort of like respond to that. Um, so at least for me, at the moment, with my limitations, like being inspired by music is really more on like trying to write prose with more rhythm. I don't know if I'm always successful there, but it's something that I try doing. Um, and I think also, I guess, really just on the more technical sides of writing, syllables, length of sentences, like that's the most musical my writing can get at the moment, for better or for worse. But yeah, I would really love to explore something, crazier in the future. Maybe getting more into like prose poetry, because I do know poetry can do a lot more. With incorporating more musical aspects than prose. But yeah, that's that's where I am for now. What about you, Kate? Since you asked the question.
Also like you guys, I'm very into photography and music. Not that I'm any good at those things. I just appreciate them a lot. Um, with music in particular, I think there was one passage from a car seat headrest song that I included before one of the poems, and yeah, I guess music like that inspires me when I'm already feeling those feelings that the song conveys. And for the visuals on my chapbook, I actually used some of the photos I took on my phone, and Kat just post processed them to make it look more cohesive or more like cyanotype prints. But there are some actual cyanotype prints. If you see the cover, like the one with the flowers, there's a side there of a page full of blue and it's got flowers printed on it. I actually did print that using cyanotype. So yay. Yeah. So it's just a collage of a lot of the things that I really liked when I was in the process of creating the chapbook. And yeah, very chaotic as you guys can see.
But I think the cover looks chaotic, but when I read it, it's actually kind of soothing for me. I don't know why. Like the flow, like it's very emotional. So when I read, it feels a bit calm for me. Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
I
That's how
like
I
it.
felt when I was reading your poems actually. It
Oh,
made me
okay,
like wanna take a walk, you know, get in touch with
thank you.
nature and all that.
Oh, I have a question for everyone. So since this is a zine and part of the zine is like, collecting works and then organizing, reordering the works from start to finish, I was wondering, um, how did you, decide which works will go first, which works will go last? Like, what is the progression you were thinking of when you were creating your zine? And especially, I guess, for Kate, because I know, Kate, you had chapters even. Um, and I remember when we were sort of discussing how you were gonna do, our discussion. You said in our email um, that we could at least read a poem from each chapter. So it's very clear that organizing the works is very intentional for. I mean, I would assume for all of us. Yeah, what was the process like, or what did you want to convey with with the experience?
For me, it was very hard to decide which works would go well or would go together at first. But then once I had like the whole multiverse idea down, the whole or alternate realities thing down, it was easier to kind of conceptualize where to put everything. Um, well, I think the first chapter mostly is about quiet resentment, and so a lot of the or a lot, if not all of the works there were very like they featured very like domestic objects of domestic scenes, and it was very quiet but angry. And then the second one was more about becoming jaded, being thrown into like an unfamiliar situation and kind of feeling alone. And so I think the anger was a lot more pronounced in that chapter. And then the third one is more about just trying to make sense of everything by getting into different things, like risky or not. And so there's like I particularly liked writing about that chapter because it was fun. There's this undercurrent of, oh, I'm very lost. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm having fun. And I think that's what the chapter, or at least I think that's what I tried to convey in that chapter. And then the last one, it's, well, it says in the title, all of the above. And so it kind of tries to summarize everything. It's kind of focusing on our reality where all of those emotions, maybe all of those things did happen to that persona and they're coming into terms with it. So the fourth one is more about being at the acceptance stage of grief, whereas the others were more about the earlier stages of grief, like denial and anger and then resentment and all that. I tried to make it end on a more positive note, or at least at a point where the persona is like, okay, I don't have everything figured out yet, but that's okay because I have the people around me and I have myself. Yeah, kind of a long-winded answer, but that's how I organized everything. So, how about you guys? You didn't really put chapters in your own works, I think. So, did that make it harder or did that make it easier to kind of organize as a whole?
For me, I've actually had a lot of help from my friend. So he's a poet and he's been doing this. He has published a few books, and he's pretty good at it. And when I first did the book, it was kind of like a bit jumbled up. And then I sent to him, and then he was like, "So actually, what are you trying to say?" And I'm like, it's just, I mean, it's a poetry book." And he was like, "But there must be something that you want to convey, right?" So I think we had like a bit of chats here and there, and that's where finally I derived with the concept of like why I actually wrote all these poems. So I started with goodbye. It's actually me saying goodbye to certain things in my life, and then I want to move forward. And uh, after that, all the poetry that followed is actually me just trying to figure out a lot of things. I have said goodbye, so what do I do now? It's just me figuring out things along the way. And then finally, my final piece was firework. It's like me, okay, I said goodbye. I found this new me. And so I would say like I really had a lot of help from my friends, just like tons of chats and stuff. Him like asking me like questions and I'm like, what do and then yeah, it's just like digging into my brain and then trying to figure it out. Yeah. So it's very similar to Kate actually starting off and then like finally like accepting like okay, this is where I am at and I think I'm good. I processed all of this. Yeah.
My process is contrary to Kate's, I guess. It's an intentional chaos because I want my zine to be about my relationship with work. And it's a lot of different emotions. It's resentment, it's confusion, it's contentment. And I want everything to jumble together. I don't want to put like resentment in one area and then in one section and all the confusion in one section and all the contentment in one section. I want to jumble everything up so it's kind of avoid it being about my resentment towards work or my confusion towards work because I guess in contrary to a lot of work, I don't think any of my poem is about one emotion. So I kind of struggle if I have to organize it in a way that categorize everything. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that without reducing my. I guess for me, it's like complexity of how I'm feeling about one particular subject. So yeah, I think it's practical for me because it's easier to jumble things together for me. And what else? What else? Oh, but I did shift things around for practical reasons because this is a bit uh, technical, but I'm pairing existing words with existing photos of my cat. So it's also like how I lay out stuff and what goes together and how it, kind of come to the pages. And yeah, a lot of it is also practical.
In my case, I the works that like how the works are organized in my zine, they're chronological. Um, I I would have wanted it to like scramble it and make it not chronological because the way I write, like in a single piece, is often not chronological anyway. But for the zine, I felt like because my journey with nature, just started when I moved away from home. I felt like it had to be chronological to sort of help the reader, or at least to let the reader join me, I guess, in this sort of new journey of mine of connecting with nature in a way that I haven't done before. And I felt like if I had, jumbled up the pieces, it might have been quite overwhelming. Where I don't know, maybe because I also don't know, like what the reader knows. We always thought that the reader has to be. I mean, we're taught that we should think that the reader is smart, but I also don't know like what kind of journey the reader is on. So, for example, in my first essay, I think I talk about grounding, which I had never known before until the Airbnb person told me about grounding, and so I felt like that was probably because I'm introducing this concept, and I do start grounding myself after writing the first essay, and it appears I think again in the next essay, I felt like it would just make more sense for the reader to sort of know what grounding is at the start, and then when they go to like the fourth essay or something, they already know what grounding is. Because yeah, like I don't know what people's experience is with nature, and it sound, at least when I first heard it, I thought it was some like hippie stuff. But only, of course, the Airbnb person was really like chilling, grounding to me, and told me to watch all these like documentaries. And I also Googled it, and yeah, like there are scientific studies about grounding, but it's not something that you know it's not mainstream basically. So I just wanted to sort of make sure that I guess the journey is clear. So as much as it's not me to do things chronologically, I it was just I guess a practical thing as well. Do it chronologically. Um, yeah. Sorry, I'm just gonna like check my notes now for like specific questions that I've had from people. So sorry, this is the one that I have for Kate that we haven't really like discussed yet. And the question is why use the multiverse idea to explore love? What sort of connection did you see between multiverse and yeah and love?
Um, well, when I started writing um, the poems for Multiverse, I had just finished Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is a super great film. And if you guys haven't seen it yet, I recommend it to everybody. So you guys should watch it. But I chose the multiverse specifically because as a person, I like to think about possibilities a lot. Like I'm obsessed with possibilities. I date people because of possibilities, because of potential. And I overthink a lot. So I always think like, oh, what if this? What if I did this instead of this? And I feel like that those small decisions do affect like the future and how or like where you find yourself. And so I just thought a lot about what if I did this, and what if I did this instead? How different would my situation be if I did things differently? And I think towards the end, I come to terms with all of those emotions and um, kind of the not or knowing all of those possibilities exist, but coming to terms with the fact that I am here and it's real, and I have to work with where I am and who I am right now. Yeah.
Well, that's a good answer. Thanks, Kate. And yeah, I wasn't sure if everything everywhere was an influence, but it's good to know that it is. And I think there is this trend of like stories that involve the multiverse, and so far it's been really fun, at least for me, to see like different takes of the multiverse, like how it works, and also I guess like the implications of it. Like everything everywhere had that family thing going on, and like nihilism, and I don't know if you guys have seen the latest Spider Verse movie. I think that one has more to do with like belonging, or at least belonging is also a theme in the movie. Um, so yeah, it's cool to sort of see it explored, not just for love, but also in a domestic setting, and that I found it quite interesting because I was expecting something very expansive, like everything everywhere, but the way you wrote it was so contained with like very real experiences, and what you sort of focus on is like the relationship itself, the people have with each other. And my favorite part is also like the pets. I don't know. I just really like that. Non-human beings are included, because I do think that oftentimes they are excluded. And yeah, I guess that's also why, like, um, Shelby would write about, focus on nature. And I guess this might tie into like my unanswered question from Shelby that I do want answered, which is, um, if you find comfort in nature, or at least the persona in your zine, a lot of comfort, and a lot of life and excitement from nature. I was wondering, um, like, do you personally find that same comfort elsewhere? Because at least for me, I find it very hard. Like, after being like in touch more in touch with nature, I find that it's hard to find something that gets that comforts me the same way as nature does. I'm not sure why, and I think that's why I want to ask you this question, because maybe you found something that's as close or this the same level as nature, or if not, what is it about nature that you find comfort in? Like, it's almost really like a sense of peace, and at least from reading your poems, it almost seems like the peace is not a breakable piece, and it's also a piece that is genuine, because it's a piece that recognizes pain and loss, right? It's not a piece where oh, I'm just going to close my eyes, shut my ears, but this is a very kind of like aware kind of piece. So yeah, I was wondering, like, why nature, for you, and if it's only just nature.
Um, I think I think yes, nature gives me the most comfort. Um, I think it's the place where you can be silent and kind of explore how you're feeling inside. It gives the nature gives you the space and some, I don't know, it's just like that. It's kind of a weird, it's almost, it feels very magical to me, like just to be somewhere where there's total silence, but yet it's not so silent because there are things happening around you. And it makes me feel very small sometimes. Like it makes me think of bigger things. Like, oh, like I'm not the only person in this world. Like there's so many things happening around me. Like, um, so it also, yeah, I think, yeah, it gives me comfort. At the same time, it makes me think of a bigger picture because I think like my most favorite stuff is actually mountains. I feel that, I don't know, I like this idea of feeling very, very small. It grounds me. Like I'm like, I'm just like a potato here. Okay, look, and the mountains are like so majestic. I'm like, and then that's when I'm like, okay, I think you can comfort me. And yeah, the feeling, it's just like magic. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah, I like the feeling of being like a potato in a big vast world. I enjoy that feeling of being small sometimes. It's just so weird, when you're at office and in life, you kind of have to have this persona of you just fighting things, doing things, constantly just moving. So I like nature giving you the space of being small, of being whatever you are without questioning you. So that's very nice. And number two, I think it's a very, very cliche answer. Another place that gives me comfort is actually home. I just like sitting around, like disturbing my sister or talking to my mom. Yeah, that's the second place. Yeah.
Okay, and this is me trying to tying it to Adira. By the way, this doesn't mean I'm ending it. I'm just like trying to connect with the questions that I have from each of you that haven't been answered. Um, so Shelby mentioned, want, or like this desire to feel small, and I can relate. I do like that smallness that I get from nature, but don't you think? So maybe this is for everyone to answer, but don't you think that the city life with all the skyscrapers and all, like, I don't know, all that slaving away, like, doesn't that also make you feel small? So what is the difference with the smallness from nature and the smallness that you might get from your boring ass job where you feel like you're just slaving away, because you quote unquote have to, but do we really have to? But anyway, So yeah, what is the difference? And I guess also Adira, if you'd like to answer that very profound question, um, my question for you is like when you started writing all these poems, how distant were you emotionally from from the work or like all the work stress? And when you said earlier that when you write things, like you sort of like find peace after you've written them down. You don't really like go back to them. So I guess since creating the zine, have you sort of felt that sort of, I don't know, that chaos from work still? I mean, I'm assuming that you would, because I just think work is, as we know it with the corporate culture, is chaotic. But I guess for you personally, does it still have the same toll on you, or are you able to sort of, you know, manage it better because you've written about it before and you've sort of like conquered some things about work?
Okay, I would like to respond to feeling small. And when you're surrounded by skyscrapers versus when you're surrounded with trees, pine trees, and everything, nature. I think the difference for me is because I love nature, although unfortunately I live in a city where I work again. So the difference is feeling small in the city. I feel alienated, while in nature I feel like at peace. I can become one with this. I can sit here and feel as if I'm part of this. And when it's when we're talking about concrete jungle, I don't know if I will ever, and if I ever will want to become one with that. So I think it's the feeling of alienation when you come to nature versus when you feeling small in the city. Also about writing at work, I think uh, work is still chaotic and always will be. I think I just now received a notification, a Slack notification about work just now. So it's still chaotic and will be and always be chaotic. But I find a peace writing for myself because as a writer by trade, um, you will always have your work heavily edited by other people. You will always revise, revise, and revise to fit other people's needs and other people's briefs. So whenever I feel like my work are being edited out of my control, I escape to my own writing, which I can do however I want. And that's also the freedom in making a zine, right? I mean, I appreciate having an editor and people who give criticism of what I write. But the beauty of writing your own zine is you can write however you want, when whatever you want. So that's an escape that I come to really appreciate about writing a zine. And do I still feel the same resentment that I feel when I'm writing, when I wrote my pieces? Not so much. I read somewhere that never mind. I think writing about writing about my complaints and trauma is like externalizing the pain. So as I said before, I still hate it, but I said what I have to say. I have nothing left to say about it. I put it all there. I have nothing else to complain about. So even if it's still happening, I don't know what else to say. I told you all about it in my zine, and I told the world all about it in my zine. I have nothing else to say, and that's how I distance myself from the situation, even when I'm still living in it. But I feel like my responsibility to myself is to process it and to express it, and I did that. So that's how I externalize my pain of working. Thank you.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I used to at least for me before, there were things that I did not dare write about. I mean, I write about, very like sad things already, but there are still things that I don't dare write about because I'm scared of externalizing them. But I think with my experience of, trying to write more political things, for example, um, I guess somehow it's kind of interesting where, like the thing kind of materializes for you as you write about it, but at the same time, I don't know, as a writer that's, that's typing in the words, for maybe for brief moments, I would say the situation feels conquerable. Maybe it's the creator versus the creation dynamic that happens when you write, but that is the experience for me. Um, for like I said, for just brief moments, I do feel like I can sort of not really defeat the thing that I find evil in the world, but at least kind of shelter myself, I guess, and not die in the process. Um, and I don't know how true that is in the real world because, heavier forces are against us. But I mean, because we don't really have a lot of choice, right, in terms of like how we live our lives and stuff. I mean, 100%. But yeah, I feel like in terms of writing things out and expressing things, like that's really the most that we've got. As writers, I mean, I'm sure like performers would have their bodies and song and dance and stuff. I mean, if that's also your thing, that's great, but that's not my thing. So I just take the words. In, in my case, um, yeah, I guess I'm done with my questions. But if you guys have like other questions for each other, that'd be cool. Sort of just like, I don't know, wrap up unanswered stuff.
I have a question for everyone. Uh, One thing I really like about all your zines are they all feel very cohesive. Like it fits a theme very nicely. Um, and I want to ask, when you in the process of writing the zine, did you like write for a specific theme in mind? Like, okay, I'm not writing about this, so it can fit into a zine with a theme, or do you like just write what you want and try to figure out what it's about, like how everything fits together in a zine? Yeah. How is your process writing the zine?
I think I can go first because my answer is probably the simplest one, which is um, I write about myself. So, I've been called self-centered and narcissistic for the main reason, or for the only fact that I write nonfiction. I feel like people who don't understand creative nonfiction always throw that at nonfiction writers. So the joke is it's all about me, so it's easy to just put everything together because it's about me anyway. But for this zine in particular, I think I've come to realize that, or at least before making the zine, the works that the essays I was writing really um, were about like nature, or at least how I'm finding comfort and solace in nature despite all the all the things I find problematic in the world. How the world pretty much like accounts for the things that we do. It's very transactional, but nature is not transactional and all those things. And I really wanted to sort of explore that in my writing naturally. And when the zine market happened, and I saw people's zines, and I thought I wanted to make one as well. Um, I think it was very natural since like all those were written like one after the other, so it was easy for me to sort of put them together for the zine. So yeah, it was a no brainer for on my end. So I'm not sure about Kate and Shelby.
Mine, I've actually I wrote a lot of stuff that I already have like a lot of poem in my book, and my first instinct was just to like pick the top 40 and it's just like, okay, I'll just dump it in and then figure this out later. And then, like I said, I told you guys, I spoke to my friend. My friend was like, don't you want to like pick and do something a bit more proper? And I'm like, proper? Okay. So I looked back at it. I started thinking what kind of journey I want the user to, I want the person, the reader to be on. So that's when I started to like removing things, adding things, removing things, adding things. And when I was finally very satisfied with how the journey was, the last thing I picked was the title actually, because I think what helped me most, like writing all this, is actually the element of water. Yeah, so I think I wrote a lot based on like listening to water sound, being in the water. So that was like kind of like an emotional. Oh, I think I'm gonna like put something relevant to that, and that was it. That was it. But I had like tons of things. I wrote like so many random stuff. Even when I was reading it, I'm like, okay. So it was quite a process for me to like into my own self to find out what kind of story I want to tell someone. Yeah.
I guess for me, I can kind of relate to Chelby. Like, I already had a few poems that I wanted to include even before I had the like big main idea for my chapbook. And so it was kind of tricky to really like put them together. But I feel like I kind of got away with that because my my thing is that it's intentionally um chaotic and it doesn't necessarily all make sense together. But I feel like the multiverse theory was kind of like an easy way out of really finding like one thing that it's about. But yeah, once I found that big concept of the multiverse, I that was where I began like planning out my chapters and what they would be about. And so from there, I also wrote more poems about the story and what those specific chapters were about. Thank you, Idira, for your feedback. I personally didn't think it was cohesive, but I like that. I Some people think that I made it work.
I actually kind of agree with Elira. I was like wondering when you see chaos, it's actually extremely organized when I read it. And I'm like, okay. So I was like, oh, okay.
Thank you. I also really like the cohesiveness in your works. Like with Shelby's, it started from water, and it was really fascinating to read about Adira's relationship with work and all of the emotions that are involved, and also Steph's personal experiences about nature and race and culture. Very great
I
read.
was actually when I was reading Steph's, I think you wanted to change your name or something. I was a bit stressed. Like, is she going to change her name? She's not going to change her name. I'm like, I need to finish reading this. That was like my favorite piece actually.
I feel like I enjoyed. Okay, to be honest, I used to sort of look down on a lot of like the superstitious beliefs and a lot of the traditions. Um, Broadly speaking, that Asian cultures have. I feel like we're superstitious by nurture. I don't know if it's a nature thing, but definitely we were brought up to be superstitious. Um, I think the other side of the coin is that there is a spiritual aspect in our cultural lives. Um, and I used to like eat that shit up when I was a kid because I don't know, it was just so like magical to me. But then as you know, as I started, like growing up and in my when I was a teenager, I started like looking down on those things. Call it post-colonial shit or whatever. But like in my mind, I was kind of, ashamed, or at least like I was cringing at my younger self for for believing all those things because it's not scientific, you can't prove it or whatever. But now that I've so for some reason I've gone past that and I was able to sort of, you know, respect, I think, and maybe it might tie in with like the nature stuff, which is respecting things that we don't really quite see or understand, but it's really just there. Maybe we just have different words for it, and I don't know. I find it. I like writing about that, about those things, even the about my name change with the, I don't know, feng shui expert or something. Um, am I back?
Hello,
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
here.
I feel like I angered the gods right. There's some. I don't know if I'm back or not. It says I'm connecting.
I hear you.
Oh, okay, I'm heard. Cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just find it at least, quite interesting to write nonfiction but write more of those, I don't know, non-tangible ish things, or something that's definitely like not considered scientific. Um, because I feel like it just adds something different to to nonfiction, which is very realist. So yeah, it's just cool to add some magic and awe. So yeah, thank you so much for pointing that out, Shelby.
Oh, we're all just very silent. I don't know.
Just processing all of this information.
Also, thank you to Ega, Wahida, and Camille for joining us here on Gilded. Also, Raphael for joining us on Gilded. And shout out to people on the YouTube stream. We've had like 5 people earlier, 5 or 6 people. So say hello to your friends. Just kidding. Um,
So I think my workmates are watching right now. So hello, guys.
the workmates. You guys should read a zine about work. Just kidding. Well, if you guys are good, or if you have other questions, yeah, just let me know. Otherwise, I can close this session as the Seal It Circle person.
That was a nice session.
Yeah, I'm good.
Hey, we winged it!
Very deep conversation. Had
That's so
fun.
fun.
So
It was
simple, but
fun.
yeah, okay. Yeah.
You're so spontaneous. I'm amazed. I mean, like, I kind of felt that you guys would do well, but I wasn't sure if I could be spontaneous. So
I was
it's
scared
fun.
as well. I was nervous. I'm like,
I got scared and Idea in the chat earlier was like, Steph, are you moderating? I'm like, no. I wasn't aware.
I was really expecting someone to just, to give the conversation because I'm not gonna be able to do that.
I think we all did well though. For real. Like
Yeah.
we all got to like ask questions, let each other talk. So and tell our zines.
Everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah. Nice job. Thank
Congrats.
you.
Okay, time to put my Steeled Circle cap on and say thanks everyone for joining our Zinester Talk here on Gilded, and to those on YouTube, thanks also for joining us. So you can check out Of Sounds, Tides, and More, Multiverse Theory, The Space Between My Desk and My Chair, and House Blessing as root check at slczmarket.myshopify.com. The links are in the YouTube chat for everyone tuning in on YouTube. And to those who've bought a festival ticket, we hope to see you for more craft talks, panel discussions, and the mini expo this Saturday. And on Sunday night, we have a community wide activity, which is a talk about sharing your writing on social media, which was actually an in demand like talk from the community. So to those who are curious about self promoting without looking like you're self promoting and without coming across as annoying on social media, talk on Sunday night is for you. So that's 9 p.m. GMT plus 8. So that should be 8 p.m. Indonesia time, Jakarta time. Hopefully I got that right. So yeah, hope to see you guys there. There's on the events page on Gilded, the event is there. So I think Gilded puts it on your local time. So yeah, no mistakes. Hopefully with time zones. And yeah, thank you and have a good night, everyone.
Thanks.
This is so fun.
Picture?
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Oh yeah, sorry, group picture. Sorry, thanks Raphael for reminding me about the group picture. Clutch. Thank God no one hung up yet. Okay, so group picture time. Okay, I guess those who weren't part of the Zinester Talk can keep their cameras off. So, 1, 2, 3. Oh, the camera's on. Okay, wait. Okay, wait. I haven't. I don't see Camille yet though. It's still black. Wait, did I take the picture though? I don't remember. No, I didn't take it. Okay, sorry. Sorry. No. Okay, wait. We'll take one and then we'll see how long it takes Camille to restart. So Camille, go and restart. But yeah, we'll take a picture first without you, and then we'll see what happens. So 1, 2, 3. Okay. Yay! Okay, so Camille is restarting. So this is now a test for her device. By the way, Adira, I just want to say, because I mentioned earlier that your cat looks a lot like my cat. And I was reading your zine when I was away from my cat, and I was just missing my cat so much whenever I'd see the pictures.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, there's Camille. Okay. There should be like a video icon next to the mute button. And then if you hover there, it says, should say turn on camera. Yeah, it should say turn on camera. No! Oh no. All right, so we'll figure that out for your Zinester Talk, Camille, which is I don't memorize it, so I'm not gonna say a random date. So yeah, thanks again, everyone, and good night. This was so fun. Yeah.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you so much.
Night. I'll send the group picture here.